What's going on, guys? And I accidentally hit record not when I wanted to, so we started this video a little bit earlier than I wanted, but it was whatever. How you guys doing today? I'm gonna be, I don't know how quick this is gonna be, but I have a few topics that I wanted to talk about, and as a result, it'll be easiest if we do a live stream, and then I'm just gonna clip them. So let's get right into it today. And Michael Scotto, my colleague at hoopshype.com, put out a report recently suggesting several teams are going to be on watch as we approach next week's trade deadline on February 6th. So who do you expect to trade? I think we're all sitting here and going like, Jimmy Butler, will he finally be moved? Or will this be a saga that bleeds into the summer, which is something that I think every party involved is really hoping doesn't happen. Now, is there any dark horses that you expect? One of the teams that we heard is the Pistons were wanting to make a playoff push. Now that they're saying that they'll be facilitators in a deal as a third team, as they have the most cap space available in the entire NBA at $14 million, so they can eat salary. It'll cost you a first round pick allegedly, which one might say that's kind of steep, and I'll be quite honest, yeah, that isn't a very low price point, but I think in the NBA, with the NBA trade rumors just feeling like it's just something that's perpetually ongoing, we have to look at everything and see what we can believe is true and what we can believe is not true. So we're gonna get right into it today, guys. That was my little intro for you guys to break down what we'll be talking about. And I think the biggest one is we heard that the Philadelphia 76ers have decided that they're going to be potentially selling, and that is, even though they're the 11th seed, teams are calling them and saying, hey, we're interested in acquiring some of your talent that is available. And if it is available, one of those players that people do want to get involved with is a man by the name of Gerson Yabusele. Yes, Gerson over here is somebody who I think is doing a really, really good job of putting themselves in a position to get paid. He left the NBA, went back to Europe, and I've thought he's done such a good job of playing to his strengths, playing to his roles. Sorry, I was looking over here at OBS and at the settings, and Gerson Yabusele so far this season is a multi-positional defender who can guard 1 through 4. He is an NBA level athlete. Very good frame at like 6'8", 230, 10.5 points, 50% from the field, 39% from 3, 5.5 rebounds, 2 assists, just under a steal a night, and a half a block. And the 3 teams we're hearing are the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, and the Denver Nuggets. All have interest in Gerson Yabusele, and Yabusele is a great combo forward who can stretch the floor with his 3-point shot. And if they really want to, some team, if they want to try it out, could use him as a small ball big. So to me, a guy like Gerson Yabusele, that the Celtics, the Knicks, and the Nuggets are all strong offensive teams that would benefit from having additional depth in the forward department, with a player who can play in the front court or out on the perimeter and guard several positions to help their defense, and also still be a guy who can give you some scoring on offense without needing the ball in his hand. And I think Yabusele's ability to play both inside and out make him an attractive target for a Denver Nuggets team that's 3rd in points per game, the number 1 field goal percentage in the league. They're 9th in 3-point percentage, but they don't take enough threes. And they're 10th in total rebounds, the number 1 assist team. While New York, on the flip side, outside of being the 4th best scoring team, their numbers efficiency-wise, 10th best 3-point shooting team, 18th in rebounding, and 12th in assists. I think getting a guy like Gerson Yabusele, who's going to fit the profile of players that Tom Thibodeau really likes, is someone that you could trade Jericho Sims for, and maybe a 2nd round pick or 2 second round picks and get. Boston, I do think you're going to have to trade one of the younger guys that you like. But if you believe that's enough, you bring back the guy you drafted. This is a team that, yes, is the 5th best scoring offense in the league, but they're actually the 10th worst field goal percentage, and they're middle of the pack in 3-point percentage, even though they take the most threes and make the most threes. 12th in rebounds, and the 10th least amount of assists per game by a team. So when you look at that, I think it's quite apparent that they would benefit from getting the size and the versatility that a player like Gerson Yabusele would give them. I think the Knicks and the Nuggets are the most likely teams to do this because they have the smaller contracts that they would want to move plus assets. I think the Celtics are just such in a juxtaposition that they have the same team, and this arguably might be the last year of this team because of how expensive it is. But I do believe that a team like the Nuggets, who maybe want to move Dario Saric or one of their younger guys, and Gerson Yabusele making a vet min, is going to be able to get traded for quite easily. And I think the Sixers would rather have the young talent that the Nuggets, or the expiring contract that the Knicks can offer in Jericho Sims, than anything that the Celtics can offer, because I don't think any of the players that they have would necessarily fit the timeline that the Celtics are on. So I think that's where it becomes rather hard if you are a team like Boston and are interested in Gerson Yabusele. I think it's going to be a bit difficult to get a player like him, even though I do think he is somebody that's going to be able to be effective in all three of those situations. And I think the going rate's probably 2 second-round picks. I think Philadelphia knows that he's going to be a guy who's probably going to get most, if not all, of the mid-level exception from a team, like 3 years, $27 million this offseason. So instead of losing him uncompensated, and they don't expect to compete for a championship with how this season has gone, it makes sense that they would go and get a guy like Gerson. That's how I would do it, in my opinion. That's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts. And what do you guys think of that? Now, with the NBA being a perpetual news cycle, I think the interesting story is Mr. Bogdan Bogdanović and Jusuf Nurkić. Was a video we made yesterday. Supposedly they've had talks about Nurkić, and you would assume that after that report came out from Gerald Bourget, I believe it to be exact, Mark Stein then said that the Suns did have interest in Bogdan Bogdanović. They're a team that would benefit from any more three-point shooting they could get. Bogdan is a guy who can play backup point guard, can be a starting shooting guard or a wing. He can play 1 through 3. He's not the defender he used to be, but he's not a turnstile. He's a secondary playmaker who has 2 more years left on his deal, but the 3rd year is a team option. So next year he basically becomes an expiring contract. And I'm under the impression, personally, the way that I view this going down is, if Gerson Yabusele is being shopped and Bogdan Bogdanović is being shopped, there's so much news going around, but what are we taking away from these 2 separate trades? People want to save money. Nurkić makes a little bit more than Bogdan, so the Suns, obviously being a second apron team, have to trade for less money. Boom, they save money. Clint Capella makes more money than Nurkić, so in my mind, this is definitely going to be a 3-team trade. Clint Capella going somewhere, and probably that 3rd team sending out a contract to the Hawks and eating Capella's, while the Suns take on Bogdan Bogdanović and they send Nurkić, and Nurkić ends up on the Hawks. And I think that makes sense, because Nurkić will back up Onyeka, and then you trade him in the offseason as he becomes an expiring. Bogdan gives you more depth on the Suns, and whatever 3rd team. I know we talked about it yesterday. We said the Pistons would give up Tim Hardaway and Simone Fontecchio and get a 1st-round pick. They'd give up 3 or 4 second-round picks because they get a 1st-round pick. and consolidate their all, a bunch of their second round picks, send 3 to like the Suns and 1 to the Hawks, something like that, where everybody just kind of wins. Because Bogdan Bogdanović had a rough year. He's listed as not with the team allegedly, and it seems like he's just been in Quinn Snyder's doghouse. And he struggled from 3 this season, even though he has a track record of being a near 40% three-point shooter. But even though he's still shooting 37% on the field, which isn't great, 40% is usually what he is, close for 3. So it's not like I feel like he's in a slump. He just doesn't fit this team. His field goal percentage 37, 3-point 30, rebounds a game just under 3, 2 assists and a steal a night. And the Suns are 14th in points per game. Their field goal percentage is 11th with 47.5%, 12th best 3-point percentage with 37.7, and they are the 8th worst rebounding team and 13th best assist team. Now, I think their 3-point shooting, their rebounding, and ball movement would all benefit from bringing in Bogdan Bogdanović. He's going to be a guy who's going to be able to come in and really keep the ball moving and be a connector, a play facilitator, and a guy who can kickstart fast breaks. So the other team is the Miami Heat, which I love to hear that Miami is interested in Bogdan Bogdanović. And I would not be surprised if this news is because, what if the third team is Miami instead of Detroit? And Miami's a team that is the 9th worst points per game scoring offense with just under 111 points per game. 11th worst field goal percentage at 45.7%. 16th best or 16th worst 3-point percentage, 36.7. 14th worst rebounding team and 13th worst passing team. I think the Heat would love the additional shooting and playmaking, especially off the bench. I think Bogdan Bogdanović would give them a scoring punch, a playmaker, and spacing, as a team like Miami is really trying to make a playoff push as we get closer to the playoffs. And he's somebody that I think could be a contributor. Plus, in the past, Miami with Goran Dragic has had success with ball handlers of his style. So to me, it just makes a lot of sense if you are the Miami Heat or even the Suns to go out and to make trades, to do deals that are going to bring you somebody, for example, a Bogdan Bogdanović that, he has multiple years left on his deal. But in my mind, I feel like you're going to be able to set yourself up pretty nicely with a player who could be moved again if necessary. And I think this team is doing a good job of slow rolling the Jimmy Butler sweepstakes, because I think they have realized they rather evaluate everything instead of just going crazy and making a deal that isn't going to benefit them in the long run. Because I personally believe there is no risk of losing him to free agency. And you're like, why? No one's going to pay him $52 million. He's going to pick up that option, and you're going to have to go through this to trade him again in the offseason. So if that's the case, I mean, I think they're perfectly fine just running this back to the offseason if necessary. And that's where I want to hear your guys' thoughts. If you guys are a fan of the Heat, what would you do? And I do think the Suns might have an easier time getting him, but it's definitely a thought to think about. Now, another team that we kind of just talked about, but we'll go into more detail. The 76ers. We said they might have a fire sale, and we brought up that Gerson Yabusele, Denver Nuggets, New York Knicks, and the Boston Celtics have interest in him. But Caleb Martin, Kelly Oubre, Andre Drummond, and Eric Gordon. Oubre has an option on his player option on his deal. So does Eric Gordon, and I believe so Andre Drummond. Caleb Martin's on a multi-year deal, and Gerson's on an expiring veteran minimum. Caleb Martin's a solid forward, combo forward, averaging 9 points, 43% from the field, 37% from 3, 4.5 rebounds, 2.5 assists, and just over a steal a night. He's one of the better defenders at his position, and his role has been reduced on this 76ers team, but He's on a very affordable contract that I think a lot of teams would be willing to trade for him if he's available. Andre Drummond remains one of the best centers in terms of rebounding in the league and even in history, averaging 7 and 7 and like 16 minutes a night, a steal game, and about half a block while shooting 50% from the field. He has cinder block feet. He's going to get beat occasionally, but he is somebody that I think a lot of people are underestimating the impact that he can give you. And the thing is that if the Sixers really feel like that this has to be a transitional gap year, maybe they want to just pack up the assets because they know some of these guys like an Oubre is going to decline that option because he's going to get a long-term deal from somebody else. Eric Gordon shooting 43% from the field, 41% from three, averaging 7 points, just under 2 assists a night, and a rebound a game. And the Sixers are looking to shake up the roster, and these are the ones they're saying could be on the move, according to my colleague Michael Scotto at hoopshype.com. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out, especially when you see that, yes, this is a team that, by all accounts, is in a situation that I wouldn't be surprised if, because of the frustrating season that had championship aspirations, that right now, due to the bevy of injuries that they've faced, they're the 11th seed looking out on the play-in tournament. And if they really do believe that it's not worth rushing Joel back, that the Sixers would consider selling off Martin, Oubre, Yabusele, Drummond, and Gordon. Numerous playoff contenders have gauged Martin's availability. Martin signed a 4-year, $35 million deal, and he's still been one of the most consistent 3-and-D swingmen combo forwards in the league. Oubre is averaging 15 points on 45% shooting and 5.5 rebounds and 1.5 steals a game. He has a 8.3, almost 8.4 player option, and he's someone that for another year has been able to replicate his success, which I felt like was something that he wasn't able to do because he was just really streaky with his inefficiency. Then the reason why Drummond's getting calls is teams that need a backup center are looking at Drummond, as he remains one of the league's best rebounders when healthy. And to me, I really do think Gordon, who over the last 12 games is averaging 11.5 points, almost 51% shooting from the field and 53% shooting from three, as he's been playing almost 27 minutes a night. To me, I think he's the type of guy that teams who need a scoring punch and want a veteran help off the bench would benefit tremendously from bringing in a guy who can pass the ball, can put the ball on the floor, can defend a little bit, not like he used to, but still, and is a shot creator and is only going to cost you below $5 million. That's a good deal that I think any interested party should look into. And I get it. I know with the apron and everything that it's more difficult than it had been in years past to make a deal. And to me, I think the biggest question mark that needs to be resolved is, how do we look at the NBA and understand that a team like the Sixers would want to regain cap flexibility to take another swing at free agents in this coming off season? Because for the most part, outside of the ones that they messed up on, I think by and large the role players were solid. They fit. It worked. And the real thing that was a shame was Paul George and Joel Embiid's health. It wasn't the role players. And the worst part is that these guys are going to be so expensive now, the ones that do go test free agency, that it's not worth re-signing them, and you probably got to take another crack at it. So that's my 2 cents on the matters, and that's why I think it's an interesting one. But I do believe in Daryl Morey's talent evaluation, that he can go into free agency again and bring guys in. If we go to the next team, I think a lot of you are going to be surprised. I'm kidding. The Atlanta Hawks love to put their guys in trade rumors. Am I wrong? Now, we talked about the growing sense that the Hawks swingman Bogdan Bogdanović could be traded at the deadline. My colleague at Hoops Hype, Michael Scotto, writes, the Suns and Heat and other teams have expressed interest in Bogdan Bogdanović. And as previously reported by Hoops Hype 2 days ago, the Suns are also exploring pairing one of their newly acquired first-round picks from Utah with Jusuf Nurkić to acquire starter caliber or high-level rotational player. Bogdan Bogdanović fits that criteria, and they have been in trade talks involving Nurkić and a future first in a larger potential multi-team construct, league sources told Hoops Hype. Now, I think if you look at the other veterans for the Hawks that are drawing interest on the trade market, not named Bogdan Bogdanović, Hawks center, Clint Capella, expiring contract, $22 million, has drawn trade interests from multiple teams, league sources told, as he recently was moved to the bench. Onyeka Okongwu's killing it. One caveat, however, is that teams who are reaching out to acquire Clint Capella are currently only proposing offers with players or player under contract beyond the season, aka long-term money, ladies and gentlemen. And furthermore, Sixth Man of the Year candidate DeAndre Hunter has drawn interest amid the best season of his career. I think Quinn Snyder likes him, and he's on a relatively cheap deal. However, I would not be surprised that if a team came and tried hard enough to pry him, that they could be able to do something along those lines and get a guy like DeAndre Hunter off this roster, as DeAndre Hunter has clearly shown the ability to be the Swiss Army knife that we want him, but he also has shown that if you give him the ball, it's almost like him being moved to the bench gave him the green light and the confidence to do what he does. And for someone who's been in the league now 6 seasons, yeah, this is year 6, and he has shown the flashes. The three-point shot for his career, he's about a 37% three-point shooter. It's there. He's shooting 46% from the field. I think the last few seasons he's been efficient in terms of his shooting and scoring. But this year, he's really playmaking like we knew he could. I know his stats aren't telling the full picture there, but he's really getting the ball up court quickly. He's getting the balls into the hands of his guards and his bigs. The other thing is I think him having the shot creation button where like they're putting the ball in his hands and they're saying like, go out and do this. Go out and finish the play for us. And I think that's the thing that's stuck out with Hunter this year, as his 38% is reminiscent to last year. Same thing with his 46% from the field. But I think it's the way that they're using a guy who clearly had high basketball IQ, had the ability to pass, dribble, and shoot, and to take advantage of that. You have a 7'2" wingspan on a guy who's 6'7", 225 pounds. He's the Swiss Army knife with the prototypical size at the position that does a bit of everything well. He can run the pick and roll. He can roll the pick and roll. He can shoot from the outside, attack transition, starts the fast break, and it feels like he's in the upper echelon in those play types statistically. And he's already been a fantastic defender who can guard every single position on this team, even though Dyson Daniels has surpassed him. But in the offensive game, he's become consistent, which now matches the well-rounded abilities we knew that he had. So that's one I like. But Clint Capella, I could see a team that needs center help and has cap space to rent out could be interested. Or if a team, they like the Nets are just salary dumping. I really think the Pistons make the most sense. No offense to Isaiah Stewart or Jalen Duren. You give up Tim Hardaway and Simone Fontecchio, who aren't in your long-term plans. You get Clint Capella on a rental to help you out in the playoff run. So when push comes to shove and the pressure gets hot, if Isaiah Stewart and Jalen Duren crumble, you've had Clint Capella to be that reliable option for Cade Cunningham to grab rebounds, especially on the offensive side, and to be just an interior presence. And if you guys really like him, you'll be a free agent this offseason and you guys can talk contract. But I think that's the best way for me, how I look at it, because why wouldn't you do that? Yeah, so I would be curious to see what the going rate for DeAndre Hunter and Clint Capella are going to go. I think Hunter's the most valuable, while then it's probably Capella because of the expiring. Then Bogdan, yeah, he's 32, but he just doesn't align with the core. So I definitely curious to hear your guys' thoughts on all of that. I think it definitely is cool to see how it's all working out, because to me, I think this is a team that has the ability to quickly get into scary playoff position. Now, let's go over to a team that said, we're trying to be a playoff squad. We don't want to take on your money. We lied. Because my colleague at Hoops Hype wrote that the Detroit Pistons are seeking a future first-round pick to be trade facilitators using their $14 million cap space in a multi-team trade scenario. Teams looking to dump unwanted salary to duck below the luxury tax threshold or the second apron or first apron have circled with interest. Additionally, Malik Beasley has been drawing trade interest from several championship contenders, but wants to remain in Detroit, and it seems like that might be something that's going both ways. I believe if there are people who are going to be available for trade on the Detroit Pistons roster, it's going to be guys like Tim Hardaway Jr., Simone Fontecchio. Who else? It's Tim Hardaway, Simone Fontecchio. I really think if they get a first round pick, sure, Malik can go. But if he doesn't, I think they're cool bringing him back. Malik's going to get money this offseason, probably the full mid-level exception. I think they're going to keep Paul Reed. I really do think this is a team that would want some front court help. But yeah, I don't have much else to talk about this one because we have another video discussing the playoff push. So if you want to see that one, go check that out. And Detroit's solid and all. It's just like, why would you put yourself at risk to, I guess in this case, just maybe to lose out on re-signing him and then trading him down the road? Because it seems like there's a decent relationship there. So to me, when, yeah, you are the 14th best scoring offense, 16th best field goal percentage, 10th worst 3-point percentage, 19th worst, 11th best rebounding team, and the 9th worst passing team. So I think the Pistons are just trying to show that they're getting out of the rebuilding phase, as accumulating assets isn't the number one priority. But yeah, obviously, if you're acting as a trade facilitator, they saying, hey, we'll take on a first round pick and we'll give you some caps. We'll use your cap space to take on a salary. And hey, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. But I definitely think it's something to keep an eye out for, as I've wondered for a while if they are going to be the ones working with other teams, because it's been more alluded that like the Hornets, the Raptors are all more viable options to be salary trade fillers. So I think that's the big one to watch out for. And it gets me just curious when you look at the whole situation of who's going to be the hottest guy or the first guy to trade, because that's the one that I always get interested by. Alrighty, let's move over to the San Antonio Spurs, ladies and gentlemen. I think with San Antonio, it's definitely interesting, to say the least, at how this is all going. So we heard that they have had exploratory trade interest for Brandon Ingram, but again, nothing more than exploratory. Now, this player that if a De'Aaron Fox trade were to happen, which De'Aaron Fox's wife is from San Antonio, he's good friends with Harrison Barnes, been looking for real estate in the area. Keldon Johnson's a player several NBA executives are monitoring as a potential trade candidate if it acquires De'Aaron Fox in a multi-trade team deal. He's 2 years away from averaging 22 points a game, only 25 years old. He's on a descending contract that is owed just $17.5 million over the next 2 years. He makes 19 this year. And outside of De'Aaron Fox, which supposedly he's going to have to include Castle, even though they're reluctant, it seems that they talked about Brandon Ingram, and obviously if you're the Spurs, I'd rather just wait till Brandon Ingram gets in the free agency and we sign him there. But my understanding, it probably would have been Keldon Johnson with maybe Zach Collins or somebody else for Brandon Ingram, and maybe some draft pick compensation, probably several seconds. As the Spurs are a team that likes to slow roll it. They don't like to take big risks and miss. They like to make sure that everything is calculated. And the San Antonio Spurs, when you look at Brandon Ingram, 22 points a night, shooting 46% from the field, 37% from three, almost 6 rebounds, 5 assists a night, just under a steal game. Well, the Spurs are a team that currently shoots 38% from, or 35% from three, just under 40 3-point attempts a game. And they're a squad that would like to more than likely end the rebuilding phase, as getting a young star, young meaning not over the age of 30, to pair with Victor Wembanyama and Devin Vassell would give him a guy who is a true scoring option, who can play make, and would be a phenomenal fit for the San Antonio system, and give him a creator to play off of Wemby as he gets into his 3rd and 4th season and they start to look to be a contender and start to look at what the core looks like. To me, that does make a lot of sense, because it would just really help this team go to another level. And I would have to imagine that anything that looks like that would be immensely beneficial for the Spurs planning. And I think it all comes down to numbers, because right now, if you traded for him, you'd be trading for him, then you have to do contract negotiations. I think you just go after him in free agency, because that just makes the most sense to me. Go check out our other videos on Spurs. Now, I want to say that, yeah, we're going to do the Nikola Vucevic and the Warriors news. Sorry, guys. That's just what we're going to be doing for today. I have some other things I got to take care of. But I want to say, for everyone who's tuned in, thank you. We've just been doing these live streams a bit more often, or attempting to, just to get you guys some more content on the regular basis, even when these news cycles seem to be repeating everything, just repeating everything else that everybody is saying. And it does get frustrating, or it just gets annoying, but I get it. So the Warriors allegedly didn't want to use their assets and push the chips to the middle of the table and say F them picks like the Los Angeles Rams did. And Curry said they didn't want to do it. They were cool with the 2 eras. Then the 2 eras failed. And now they were saying the same thing. They didn't want to push the chips in the middle because they were able to win a championship without doing that. But it seems like they're probably going to have to push the chips in the middle of the table. And the thing is that you can get Vucevic, who's a guaranteed 20-point per game scorer, who's going to help the 14th ranked 3-point percentage squad, get lifted up. This Vooch is averaging just under 20 points. His field goal percentage is 54%, 6th best in the NBA. His 3-point percentage, 14th best in the NBA at 39%. He's grabbing 10 rebounds a game, 8th best in the league. 3.4 assists, 0.9 steals, and 0.7 blocks, while the Warriors are the 17th worst scoring team, 6th worst field goal percentage, 14th worst 3-point percentage. Yeah, they're actually the 7th best rebounding team and the 5th best passing team. And getting Nikola Vucevic would be a skilled big man who would allow them to score inside and out, have more size, allow them to play off of Draymond Green or Trace Jackson Davis, especially in the front court, giving them more scoring ability, more floor spacing, and rebounding, as he really would be a great fit for the Golden State Warriors. Now, the interesting part in all of this is that Mr. Zach LaVine is somebody they're also interested in, and the same people in the front office who are saying, oh, we should go for Jimmy Butler, are saying, hey, you know what, Zach LaVine might be the better option. He's younger, more durable, and he, at this point of his career, he's a better shooter, a better scorer, and he's a perfect fit for our system here. While Jimmy Butler, yeah, is a better defender and leader and has the ability to raise people, I think LaVine's scoring, shot creation, and age and playmaking makes him the safer long-term investment for the Golden State Warriors. Plus, he's cheaper. So to me, when you look at a guy like that, who's really just a one-track mind offensively, yes, he can pass the ball. He's just under 5 assists a night, but it's going to make your team smaller and more defensively flawed. Because at least Vooch is 7 foot. So yeah, he's not a great defender, but he's just going to take up space, which is nice. So I think that's one thing people don't really talk about enough, is just having someone take up space is usually huge. So that's where I think the biggest thing is, just when you see something like that. And yeah, so that's where I think with the whole Golden State Warriors news, it's definitely interesting to see that they have players available to them, but they're really just wanting to the sweet pace it out. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it, because of, you don't have time to do that. And the NBA today is just a non-stop beast. So if you're really trying to stick around, you gotta go. Alrighty, I think we'll talk about Jimmy Butler, of course. I've tried to hold this one off till the end of the video. So the first thing I want to say is the Wolves, the Raptors, the Sixers are interested in being facilitators in a potential Jimmy Butler trade. And we're also hearing that Jimmy Butler now is willing to be traded to Memphis or Sacramento, but Sacramento has no interest in trading for Jimmy Butler. So there's that. Everyone has said that if it was a trade, it'd be like a De'Aaron Fox for Jimmy Butler, but De'Aaron Fox at this point is more valuable than Jimmy Butler, even though Jimmy's averaging 17 on 54%, 36% from 3, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists a night. Memphis is the number 1 scoring team, 5th best field goal percentage, 8th best 3-point percentage, 4th best rebound, and 2nd in assists, while Sacramento's 6th best scoring team, 12th in field goal percentage, 7th worst 3-point shooting team, 13th best rebounding team, and the 14th best assist team. So I think when you look at this, whichever of these teams go after Butler, it's because they want the proven playoff performer that he is. Both the Grizzlies and the Kings could use that leadership and two-way player. I personally think Memphis, which is already a top team, by adding Butler wouldn't make them championship contenders. And Sacramento, on the other hand, is just probably trying to break through and get to the second round of the playoffs. I think Jimmy would do that. And he would also help clear up the logjam with DeMar. They could also trade DeMar instead of De'Aaron and get that deal done. The other thing is the Raptors, Wolves, and Sixers all being interested to be facilitators. As if you look at it, Sixers are one of the, statistically speaking, one of the bottom teams in the league, even though they are the 11th seed. Raptors in the middle of the rebuild, and the Timberwolves are a team that are starting to turn it around, but the only guy that they would really be facilitating is contracts that people don't really want. And I think teams know that it's with the current CBA, it's going to be easier to make trades with more teams than less teams, instead of just straight up 2-player swap, due to the fact that it's just very, very peculiar how those contracts are set up. So for a team like the Miami Heat, who are shopping Jimmy Butler, I personally believe that it makes more sense to be able to go ahead and entice the Miami Heat by giving them options. And that's why I think everybody, when you look around, loves to suggest the Rockets, who have all those expiring contracts, and Steven Adams, Jeff Green, Jason Tate, and Jock Vandale. But I think they like continuity, and that's why they've put themselves in the positions that they're in. So that's basically my thoughts on that. I want to hear your guys' thoughts. Where do you think Jimmy's going to end up? I just think it's Phoenix. They're forcing it to Phoenix. He wants to go to Phoenix. And the way the NBA works, why would you trade for someone who doesn't want to be there? You're just going to get Kawhi Leonard. And I don't think people want that. And that's where we are at. And that's what it feels like. So that's basically going to be it for me today, guys. I hope you guys did enjoy. Like, comment, and subscribe. We're trying to do more of these streams, but go check out my work at hoopshype.com. Follow me on Blue Sky and at Zero Sale on Twitter. Peace.